Yeah, can you say, so are you saying definitively that the move-out date is not November 28th? Is not this Monday?
I don't know what that is. I don't know.
But you are saying it's definitely next week, but you cannot give a date.
It's next week, and you will receive notice.
How much notice?
As much as we can. I don't have an answer for that right now. You'll receive as much notice as we can provide.
I'm not sure. I've been occupied, and I actually have been there pretty much full time from the beginning. And I want to say, and I speak for myself, yeah, the reality of it is I would definitely get a lot more work to do. Get a lot more work done. A majority of us would definitely do a lot more if we had our own space. But the reality of it is, it seems like it's not understood that we are there. I mean, it's your sacrifice to the cause. And I just feel that in return, we should at least have our grievances addressed, and that hasn't happened. And somebody already asked, and why hasn't that happened? Like, why do you think, how could we, how could we make this happen? How could we help that,
Well, I think I would just like to say, I mean, and I can't speak for all of the grievances, and I would submit that there's probably not unanimity as to what those grievances are. I think a lot of folks have a lot of ideas, but there are some issues that are working their way through the council right now that you have played a major role in bringing to light. And I think that there are things that the city can do. And I think every step of the way, particularly if we're looking at, and here's the disappointing part about this, is that we're trying to deal with this in the most responsible way possible, and somehow, oftentimes if you do, and even if it's not and it turns out not to be the perfect solution, then we turn out to be the enemy, and that's not why I'm here. I mean, it would be a hell of a lot easier for us to have operated in the manner in which almost every other city in the country is operated, which is basically get off the park. And so, I'll just say, there are a number of ways that we can work together, which is why when some folks had talked about forming a 501c3 and establishing some sort of permanence in terms of advocacy or services, that's something that we stand ready and willing to help facilitate. And I understand it doesn't need to be everyone's choice, and that's fine. And you've made it very, very clear that everyone has a bunch of everyone has a right to their own idea, and that's okay. That's okay. We're just concerned about what's going on out at the park. It is not sustainable. If you want to disagree with that, that's fine. But it's your right to do so. As it relates to all of the other issues, nothing else has changed. We're willing to work with anyone. I'm going to take these ideas back, and we're willing to engage moving forward. The fact that the park is closing doesn't change that.
A couple of questions. We keep hearing the word unsustainable. Could we have specifics as to what is unsustainable besides political embarrassment? And that's why I was saying, in terms of addressing legitimate public safety concerns, to say we need you to address the following. What is it specifically, if you can articulate that the city feels is unsustainable that needs to be addressed specifically? Because that's just a word, unsustainable. It could be unsustainable politically. That I understand. Unsustainable from an infrastructural level is a different issue. Those are specifics. So that's one question. If you could answer that to the best of your ability here, I would appreciate that. I would like to know if a representative from each of your organizations would be willing to address the General Assembly on Monday with what's coming from the city in terms of what is unsustainable and what the exit strategy is from the city's perspective. We don't, our exit strategy is not the same as yours, undoubtedly. If the park is going to be closed entirely, people were thinking or were under the impression that we'd still be able to hold general assemblies there, even if people weren't camped there. But if the entire place is fenced in, that is the end of the public square for this movement in downtown LA. The city isn't offering us an alternative public space to be public, not an office. To become a 501c3, I mean, social movements are not pushed forward in large political ways by 501c3s. We've got tons of 501c3s in Los Angeles who get along very well with the city. The vast majority of people involved with Occupy LA or Occupy Wall Street. That's not what got us the civil rights movement. It's not what stopped the Vietnam War. It's bodies in the street. This is a form of bodies in the street. So I just think those are not answers to what this is at all. That's somebody else's game. Those are the people that are already hooked in with the city that like to have little pieces of city goodies and say, we're not offering social services. We're not offering advocacy. This is a political movement. This is intended to change larger social issues, many of which are not under the control of the city. We're talking, federal legislative issues, state legislative issues, but the city, urbi et orbi, from the city to the world. This is where we are. This is where we have to express ourselves. So we have to interface with the city government in terms of the functionality and practicality of the movement and demonstration as manifested in the city. But it is meant to address much larger social issues which are not necessarily under your control at all. Some things are. The city can make positive moves which support some of these larger demands. But without public space to occupy, to dialogue with the public, and to continue the public dialogue on this democratic movement, that eviscerates the movement. So it's not a solution. It's wonderful. The people who want to 501c3 themselves into an office will undoubtedly avail themselves of that opportunity. That does not address the majority of people participating in this. So if you could, the two things that I would like answers to is what specifically is unsustainable, specifically, and two, would a representative from each of your offices be willing to address the General Assembly, in its rambunctious democratic fashion, so that more of the people hear directly from you?
Well, in regards to what's addressing your General Assembly,
yes,
we can tell them where they can go for the First Amendment rallies if they want. That's the west side of City Hall, Spring Street. The city does have that designated area. As to where you move, I can't give you that answer in that.
And what about the public safety issues?
We discussed those. The park is going to be closed.
Right, but we'd like to dig deeper than the grass. What is unsustainable besides we're killing the grass? I mean, it would be helpful to hear that. Specifically, from the city's perspective.
The park is being closed, okay? So your presence at City Hall is not sustainable. Yeah, and so if you're looking for, a debate as to when I get to the GA and go back and forth, then I'm not interested in that.
Well, maybe for
If
Mr.
you're looking for us
Sabo.
to tell you that, hey, the park's going to be closed, you have to leave. That's something that I'm not opposed to us doing. We're going there. But in terms of discussing a dialogue as to what defines sustainable and not sustainable and stuff, the issue that the department deals with is violation of law. And if the park is closed and you have to leave, then that's where the police department comes in.
Well, perhaps
we've given you another place where you've always had. Everybody has the opportunity to go there.
Perhaps we could hear from the representative from the mayor's office in terms, because we understand from Councilman Aller-Cohen that this is coming from the mayor's office, as to what specifically saying the park will be closed and therefore will be unsustainable after we close it is putting the chicken, the cart before the horse. What is perceived as unsustainable at this point that's requiring the park to be closed?
I think most reasonable people would understand that what is going on down there is not sustainable.